It's not difficult. You just have to go to, if you're, all of us are using Windows, if you're using a different application, you just go to main. For me, the simplest way I do it, I just go to search menu. And when I get to search menu, what I basically do is that I can now type in my program. I type. Pardon. Okay. I go now to, I type. So for you that you just go to search, or if you're not using search, then you type SPSS. It will come out, mine is disturbing. And you have your program. You click SPSS 21, or I think we have 21. If you have different version, you have 26 and the rest, whichever program you're using, version you're using. And so we have it here. So we have our SPSS program. Now, SPSS is a statistical the full meaning of SPSS is they've modified a new name, but it still stands for SPSS. But the name was Statistical Package for Social Science, for social sciences, which means it was designed principally to analyze mostly social science research. But it is one of the programs that is easy to use and highly utilized, especially for those who are not conversant with programming-based languages. They use often, apart from a statistical program, where there are other programs like Excel, that we say Excel is a more or less a versatile program, but it can also use to do analysis. However, with your SPS open, so I expect we should open our SPSS. But if you don't open, you can follow the interface. You go and try to practice at home. So when you open your SPSS, I've opened mine. The first thing you see is that it's similar to Excel, right? It appears the same as Excel. That's why I say you can equally use it to input your data. It appears the same as Excel. We have rows and columns. That's the same thing we saw when we were dealing with SPSS, right? Rows and columns. So we have a similar situation here. So with my rows and columns, SPSS also offers some additional things I need to take note of. First, if you look at the top, we see the default name of the program. Because I'm not assigned the name, say Untitled Dataset 4, gives you the name of the file that you have opened. It's like any Microsoft Word or any document you open. If you don't assign a name, automatically generates a name. Yes, on the top. So directly behind, below that, we have the menu tab. There are some options. We have file, we have edit, we have view, data, transform. Well, there may be slight differences with what you have, because different versions that come in with modifications. But those are the key things that we have, right? Now, beneath, around the task menu, I think there's a task menu, or the toolbar, how do you call it? We have data view, and we have variable view. Once you open SPS for the first time, you discover that data view is highlighted, it's kind of highlighted. We see that it's what? Yellow, meaning that's active. That is the active view that we are in. If you go to variable view, you discover that the variable view now becomes the active view. So, similar to Excel, what SPSS does is that we have the data view, we use it to input our data. This is where we input our data. What we did in Excel is exactly the same thing we are supposed to do here. Do we get that? What we did in Excel is exactly the same thing we're supposed to do. But now, SPSS, because it was designed for analysis, also offers another view that may help you. It's like the code guide that we developed to come and assign our codes now and define them. So that is done under variable view. So for the data view, we're inputting our data. So my first variable, the value was 1. Maybe the second one, the value was 2, the third this, and so on and so forth. Whatever I have, I'm inputting my data there. The same thing we did in Excel is the same thing that we can do here, right? So, but then there is something important when it comes to SPSS, which is the variable view. The variable view. Now, under the variable view, you are supposed to define variables and their properties, which means each variable that you have has some certain properties, some attributes that are linked to that variable. And these attributes are important because it goes back to what we started by saying levels of measurement by part of the variable. So I come with my first variable. What are those possible attributes that SPS has classified? We have the name. Each variable must have a name. Or all variables in your analysis should have names. And by the principle of all application, not two variables will have the same name in the same data set. Two variables cannot have the same name, right? At least there must be something that differentiates them. So names are unique. So from the name, we have the variable type. Now, under variable type in SPSS, if you click on the variable type, you see different types of variable types, which we'll discuss them in a jiffy. Then we have the width, we have the decimals. How many number of decimal places do you want your statistics to pick on when you are doing your analysis? By default in SPSS, we have 2. We have label. Now, what we did when we are inputting our questionnaire, we are doing our coding, we did say truth or honesty 1, right? But here, it gives us room to maybe go and come and do a description of our variable. So I may just decide to go back to my instrument and say, okay, here, excuse me. Here, I pick it, I come here, I put my variable. That's a complete description of the variable, right? I have a complete description of the variable. So here, there are no rows. I have values. The values that we assign, thank you, this is where we have to use them. But before we go, we also have missing. How do you treat your missing values? It's important here. You need to define missing values. So from here, we have columns and rows. They're almost the same, but then we're not very much interested in that alignment. Align left and right, this and that justify. It's not really important. We have measure. The measure here is referring to the level of measurement we saw when we were doing concepts. Nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. You have to classify it here. You have to indicate so that the application shall know. All right? So let me repeat myself now with a sample. Under the variable view, you are expected to define your variable and its properties. And under the variable properties, we have the name, the variable type, the width, the decimal places, the level of measurement. The things that are critical and are important for us to take note of, especially here, is the name. We have said the name must be unique, right? The variable type, the label is important, but even without the label, you can still. Values and the level of measurement. Those are critical things that you need to take note of them, even if you don't deal with the others. So now in SPSS, if you do not assign a name to your variable, SPSS automatically assigns a name to it. Now let's go back to my variable data view. I came here and all I inputted my data, let's just say put 5 or 6, right? If I put 6 here and I click elsewhere, SPS automatically gives it a name variable val005, and I come here now, I see it, they've added it here. So there cannot be a variable without a name. So you have to assign a name. Now, in assigning names for variables in SPSS, what is important is that variables names in SPSS cannot start with figures. So if I come and put a variable name here, something like this, SPS refuses. program will yell at me that what I'm doing is wrong. Variable name contains an illegal first character. So we cannot start a variable name in SPSS with a figure, right? We cannot start a variable name in SPSS with some special signs. Special signs are like percentage, and so on. This type of, we cannot start a variable name with. So if I wanted to say number 2, use this on number 2 as a variable name, they will refuse that, right? If I say percentage, I think percentage goes 5. They refuse. You cannot use percentage, right? If I put maybe 5, they refuse. So you cannot start a variable name with a figure. You cannot start a variable name SPSS with one of the special signs. You go and search the rest, right? You cannot. Now, another thing we cannot do with a variable name is that we cannot put space. If I put gender of respondent, I take enter, they will refuse. So it must be one word. Now, if I must use different words, I can put gender, put underscore. Most applications take underscore when you're writing a name. Underscore, maybe respond. Right? Take enter, they'll accept. So if what a name variable name was long and you want to input all of it, you need to use underscore. Some person may use a dot. So if I put not instead of space, put dot, they will still accept. Things to note about variable name. And my seem as very bad. Once you have the principle, it becomes easy. But if you don't know this, you struggle to input your data and they will keep rejecting. Saba. Okay. Now, that's what we have done with respect to variable name. Now, once you have inputted your variable, again, variable names are case sensitive, which means if I put gender here and I come and I want to put gender now with small letters, they will refuse. They identify to be the same, right? It goes back to the principle that variable names must be unique. So it must be unique. But if I put gender, then come here and I put gen with that arrow, they identify as 2 different variables. So you cannot have, whether you put uppercase or lowercase, it doesn't matter, but you cannot simply think that they're different because one is uppercase and the other is lowercase. So, any question? Frank, any question?
No, sir. It's so far so good, sir.
Okay. You need to break. Okay. Somebody says the information is too much. You want to take a short break. So I think we have about an hour to go. So let's take 7 minutes break. Resuming back 7 minutes, right? Exactly at 5 o'clock. Take 1 hour to run off to this session. So 7 minutes break. Are we okay? So we're resuming for those online, we're resuming in about 7 minutes time.
Okay, sir.
Bring your device now. Just give me a pen, let me give the password. That's the password. Please, during break, people leave the class. Go outside and take a break. Oops, made a mistake. I'm fine. Okay, sure, we can continue. Where did we end? Okay, we have one of our mates that's from online that said to join us offline. Welcome, sir. My name is Franklin. So, yes, who is reminding me where we ended? Okay, we're examining the variable view. So what we said was, now we have talked about the name. We are to talk on the type, variable type. In SPSS, we have different categorization of variables as variable types is concerned. The first one is numeric. We have comma, dot, scientific notation, date, dollar, custom currency, string, and zero numeric integers. Now, SPSS was designed for quantitative analysis, principally, right? And so, most of the times by default, your data type or variable type will be numeric. For instance, if I create a new variable here, let me just say I put here, let's assume this was the age, and I just say the person is 50 years. If I come under variable view, they have given a name, and they automatically classify it as what? Numeric. By default, SPS takes numeric. Numeric is only we're dealing with figures, quantitative data. So apart from that, we could take string. String means we are dealing with text. So if I put, for instance, if I have numeric here, and I come here, and I'm typing along this column, I type, let's say, let's just say school. SPS refuses, will not accept that, right? Because you've classified your data as numeric. But if it was string, let's go back now and say we have another variable here. Just give a name to it, anything, and we classify it as string. So if I come here under this variable, you see that even the sign here is different. And so I can put the word now, school, and they accept because it's text. So if you want to treat text, you must classify your variable under what? String. Now the other options are not that important because you likely not have to use them, so you might not bother much about them. They're most kind of advanced techniques, and in some cases you might not. Another important one is date, especially if you are doing time series analysis. But like we said, at this particular point, we're very much interested in the basic part of our analysis. So we've talked about variable name, we've talked about variable type. Now the width just happens to be how you want the weight of your dimensions as well as the length of items that you may want to include. But that one is not, it doesn't influence your analysis that much, so it might not be that much, we might not have a lot of concern. Now decimal places, by default, we have 2 decimal places. And if you have classified your decimal places to be 2, then you cannot come here. Let's assume that this was a salary, right? As a variable. Sorry. Yes, this is a variable name. So I've given the variable name salary, and the number of decimal places are 2. If I come under salary and I wanted to input data here, and I say 5,000, let me just say 5,000.00659. So I take enter, they automatically reject the rest of the values behind. So you may be dealing with data that most of the figures are in decimal place 0.02. This. When it comes to SPSS, this is what you see. So if you're not careful, you will not know what is happening with your data. You need to solve the problem. You have to come to decimals and increase the number of decimal places before you can get all your data. Do we get that? So those are some little challenges you may face when you are inputting your data that you don't know why they are occurring like that. So now we've already talked about name. We are now on label. Now, because the variable name is unique and has lots of rows, it doesn't give you room to write much. SPS just give a label, a wider description of your variable. Here it can take space, it can start with anything, and there are no rules, right? So you have to describe your variable better, especially when you are giving, now, something to note with respect to names. Always give names that are easy, or at least describing what you want to do. It's very, very important, because you're working on this data, you send it to another person, the person should be able to at least understand the variable, the names, the description, right? Or if you don't give names, your explanation should be explicit. Another person to follow. For instance, if I came here and I just marked X1, let's say X1. So I can come and say X1 represent maybe employment. So I know that X1 here stands for employment, right? This is just a description of what we have here. Do you get that? Yes. But it's recommended that your variable name should be as descriptive as possible, so that any other person can use, or even you know what you are doing. So that is it for variable name, variable type, decimals, and label. Now, another attribute that we need to consider is values. And how do we use values? Values take us back to our questionnaire where we say we input codes and levels. So when you click here, when you put under values, immediately you click, put your cursor, you see some 3 dots, 1, 2, 3, kind of. So it means most often when you see this in a program, not necessarily XPS, it means if you click there, it opens you to the rest of things that are hidden, right? So I'm calling it a look inbox or kind of something of that nature. So now you come with, we have value and label. Remember we said gender was 1 or 0. So we need to come here and put 0, which is the value that we assign. And what was the label? The label was what? Male. So this is where you come and also help the program to understand what your values are and your labels. So female will be 2, or yes, it's just a 2. I have come and put here female. So now, in inputting data, you may witness that some respondents did not provide answers, right? The common types of missing data, missing values you may have are, we have, let's say, I don't know. Maybe the person did not know, right? Non-applicable, NA, means it doesn't apply to that person. We equally have non-response. The person did not respond at all. Those are some common cases, right? The question you asked was not applicable to this person. The person doesn't even know, right? Or it's not, the person did not even provide an answer. Those are possible ways. So we all can treat all of this as missing values, depending on what we are trying to find out. So when you come now here, you may decide to assign. So I know that 1 was, let's assume 1 to be male, 2 to be female, and taking at. Now I'll say, I give the word 8 for what? I don't know. I put I don't, IDK, I think something like that. I know that stands for I don't know. I may put 9 for non-response, which means the person did not respond at all, right? Oh, and maybe I use other not applicable. I can put another value for not applicable. In either case, we're the one deciding. Alternatively, you may not define your missing values. You may just put your 1 for male, 2 for female, and you take your enter, right? But if you had defined, maybe giving 9, then when you come here, you need to come here now and say, okay, in my data, 9 was for, wherever you see a value 9 under a variable, not as for missing this. If I have more options, I put here. If there was 8, I put. If there was maybe 99, I put. So SPSS understand that under this variable, wherever I see 9, wherever I see 8, wherever I see stands for missing value. That's another way, but we are not obliged to treat it this way. The first option we said is that you may just put your options and you don't define 9 this for missing value. But if you don't do it, when you get to your analysis, SPSS will be able to identify, right? SPSS will be able to identify that this is missing value because the space will be left blank. When you come there, you'll not assign, will not put anything. But if you are put your 9, then you need to come and put 9 there. And if you are putting the 9 for the program to know that it means missing value, you need to come and define it here. Now, the last thing which is important to note is measure. Measure takes us back to the level of measurement that we saw. Under the level of measurement, we saw that it can be ordinal, it can nominal. And when we were doing it, we said SPS treat them as 3. We just have nominal, ordinal, and scale. Scale is a combination of ordinal, interval, and ratio. That's what we said. Do we get that? Levels of measurement. So we will now have to, gender is nominal, so you click nominal. And so rho has to do whether it's a dependent or independent variable. It doesn't really influence your results. Maybe in some advanced statistics that will be needful, but it doesn't influence your results. Any question with respect to variable names, variables, and their property? The people are sitting. Are we morning? Most of them, I think, we say non-response, don't know. There might be more than, but for now, SPS provided. Yes. So I don't know if there's a possibility for that, but I don't really think so. Maybe you choose to take with a range of values depending on you. So it's all possible. But others will not fall under. For instance, let's assume that gender, male, female, and others. So maybe 3 now take others. Others here is a response option, not a missing value. Do you get it? Others is a response option, which means there is another category of gender that you have not classified here. And somebody takes other, it means the person belongs to that category, not classified. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person did not answer. So others represent, you get the difference. Yes. So haven't read that. That's all about SPSS. What's fun? That's all now. Anything left again? Madam Bloom, that's all right. Anything left again? Why are you concluding? When you input your data, you save it. So you should not be concluding. Why are you concluding? Yes, it's numbers now. We were talking about inputting, we're not talking about analysis. Right, so you cannot conclude it. Once you're done with inputting, you do what? You save. So you put to save. In SPSS, this stands for save. This icon here stands for save. This is when you want to open a folder. So basically, that's the first thing we're doing, right? We have to start from assigning codes on our questionnaire. From that, we can input in Excel or in SPSS directly. But from my own experience, I prefer Excel. Then once you input in Excel, I feel that somebody may ask, when you input in Excel, how do we now have it in SPS? Because we went and say we export. Well, somebody is best with using analysis, different analytical tools, know that you may need to bring the data here by importing. So now we are done with assigning our variables and we want to move on with our data. The first thing we have to do, if we have inputted our data in SPSS or in Excel or any other statistical program, we need to bring it now to SPSS, right? To do that, we go now to, that's when we start using some of these menus up. We've not talked about these menus up. We have file, edit, view, data, transform, and so on and so forth. So under file, if you click under file, you see some options there. Now, they may be different from your own, but the key things are the same. We have new, we have open, we have import, we have save, save as, save all, export, rename, display file information, this and others, right? So let's take the first, like new. New means you want to open a new, a plain sheet like we have here. But in SPSS, there are different types of empty places that you may open data, you may open syntax, you may open output, and you may open a script. What are the differences between these different categories? Now, data simply means what we have done, right? But SPSS has a possibility of using the coding part of it. SPSS was not just designed for you to be clicking. You can equally use what? Codes. So for you to open syntax, where you'll be able to start to click. Now, I can do my analysis using syntax. Maybe I want to run frequencies, I write my frequency whatsoever based on the syntax I have to use. So you can use SPSS from a programming perspective or use it from a point and click perspective. But our interest here will be more or less on what? Direct analysis that we're doing. Now, if you learn how to use syntax for SPSS, you will enjoy it more than somebody who just point and click. All of them, they have both advantages and disadvantages. Yes, we have both advantages and disadvantages, right? Yes, so that's the first thing. So now we said, apart from that, we've talked about syntax output. This is when you've done your analysis. So you have an output. So SPS has actually not only 3 views, but 2 views. Data view and variable view has 4. I mean 3, right? The other one is output view. When it means once you are done with your analysis, you need to get your results. So the output view is something that looks like this. If I analyze my data, then it will be displayed on an output sheet like what I have here. So now again, I may want to open. Open simply means you're opening existing data. Remember the other ones we are saying we're opening anything for the first time, new thesis, and I already have my system. So I take open data. SPSS will take me to somewhere in my computer, right? For me to locate the data. Maybe it's taking me to cohort 10. And now I can't find anything under my folder cohort 10. The reason is that if you go to cohort 10, you may not find any folder or any document that is an SPSS file, that has SPSS file extension. Each application saves its document with an extension that can only be opened by that application or compatible application. So here, they want me to locate a file. But then since I may still want to check if I have another file type that SPSS can open, I come to file type, I click here. SPS give me a list of different possible files that they can open. They can open portable.port, that's another program. They can open Excel, they can open CSV. CSV stands for comma separated data. For those who are doing computer engineering and the rest, they see more of comma separated data. The data just separated with comma, everything is comma everywhere. It's one of the most common data forms, right? You click. So let's find out whether I have an Excel file in my data. I click. Okay. Now, since I have an Excel file in that folder, when I choose the Excel, it will appear. So I can see that I have an Excel file. So what do? You have to click open. We're now trying to import the data that we inputted in SPSS into maybe in Excel into our SPSS. Now, before you import the data, what happens is that the program looks through the data that we are trying to open and look at the first column, the first row, check through the first row and tries to identify whether the first row contains the names of your file or not. That's why we say the first row should always be used for names. Do we get that? Because most statistical programs or most programs use the first row for the names and the second row to define the data type. What did I say? The first row for the names, the second will be able to classify whether this data is string, it is text, it is whatsoever. You get that? Yes. So the first 2 columns, the first 2 rows are critical when it comes to what? Data inputting in spreadsheets. So SPS looks through and discovered that the first might be names. So that's why the FIMV asks, read variable names from first row. If I think that my first row doesn't carry, but it's the data that starts there, then I need to uncheck here. If I uncheck, you discover that the first row now, what is happening? They turn now to V1, V2 because they doesn't have names. Okay, I was like, you are not more transparent. Maybe can you sit somewhere? It's like those people they don't see. I think sitting there or not. I think you can just sit here. You should be okay. Do we get that? So looking at it from here, you discover that we need to click this one to indicate that we have variable names on the first row. So if I do that and take OK, now in some data sets, you may not have to take OK, they may still have to ask you other options, especially it was comma separated. And Spss says they're close together, and so most of them may not need to classify and find a lot of information. So you just see it here, you take OK, and after some time, your data opens. So actually, this is now our data that we have imported. This is our complete data set. This is our data set. If you look, you see right down, they have about 300 participants in this data set. Gender, this and that. So now we have inputted our data. We are done with inputting, right? Yes, we can import. Apart from importing, you may also have your data in Spss and want to export it to another file type. So we have export. So you want to export it to a database, you want to export it in Excel, comma separated, and so on and so forth. That one, you can do that. But I don't think that's part of what we'll be doing. More or less, we have to import in this class. You will get it. Now you can import data from a database. If you come here, you want to import, they give room. It's not only Excel. You can import data from a database. It's a little bit complicated. You can import maybe text data from Spss, from Starter. Those are all. There's also statistical programs that we can use. For instance, Starter, we use it to analyze data as well. Spss is also used for analysis, and a host others. There are so many 1,000 applications that you can use to analyze data. So just note that. Save. We all know if you have used a program, I don't need to teach you how to save a program, right? You click on save, go and save, and always try to save your programs or your files with descriptive names. As we say, variable names with descriptive, it's also good to save your documents with some descriptive names. Avoid saving documents on the desktop. It's not recommended. Right? Then when I go to my desktop, it's very detailed, like, oh, Ferdsilinks. So I also do that at times. You see, it's still dates. But if I do this way, because I'm working, when I'm done, I can come back now and clean and make sure that all of this, they should not be there. So your desktop should be clean. You need to have a clean desktop. That's just a recommendation. It's not part of data analysis. Right? So this is our data. Now, just to be sure that I've inputted everything accordingly, I can pick up one of my questionnaires or somebody I inputted. My first responded, which was 1. I check. So if I come and I'm taking information along the row, means I'm looking for information with respect to what? A particular respondent. So I see that my first respondent was a she, I'm assuming, but we gave 2 to be she, right? Of age 31. Level of education, let's assume was first living. Let's strongly agree, or whether we strongly agree whatsoever, but it was 7 point, right? The other one, the person agreed to a certain or to a greater extent, and so on and so forth. That is information with respect to a particular individual. But if I'm checking along this, I can either see that the first respondent here, we have, it's a she, right? Followed by a he, she. So that's information with respect to what? A particular variable. I go to age, this, and I'm seeing the ages. Once I've done that, I can now see that everything has been done accordingly. I save my data. So let me just save the data. Let's practice data. So I've saved my data. So we have edit. You may need to edit, undo, but and we don't really have much to do there for now. View. You want to view, maybe I don't want the line show uncheck. No, that's under grid. You will see that I'll not have lines, but it's not that important. Don't really have to influence your analysis. So the next is the data. Now the tabs that are very much important for us here, we have the data they transform and they analyze, and maybe graphs. Data, transform, analyze, graphs. Those are the key tabs that you'll be working with. But the highest that you use will be analyze. All the analytical techniques that you may want to do in SPSS, some of that are here. For instance, you may want descriptive, you may want Bayesian statistics, tables, compare means, general linear model, generalized models, and so on and so forth. You have them under analysis or analyze. We have regression, correlation, log linear, neural network classification, and so on and so forth. They are under analyze. Now transform. Transform helps you, maybe you want to compute a composite variable. Maybe you want to recode a variable into, for instance, you coded a variable. That's what we call reverse coding. You may see that next time, but you coded your variable and you want to change the code. Come to transform. So you see recode. We may want to create a dummy variable. There are different types of variable, possible variables. Some of them we might not see them here because start bringing in, some people will not come to this class coming Sunday. People will just go whoop into thin air. We'll not see them again. Right? So data, we have data we can sort, we can classify, we can assign, we can identify duplicate cases, and so on and so forth. We can split. We have that under data. The principally, that is the basics of SPSS. It's an application. So somebody who understands statistics can go ahead and use SPSS now. How do you do that? Okay, let's take the first basic that we have seen. We want to run descriptive. The first thing, let's check, we go to descriptive statistics. As we saw yesterday, under descriptive statistics, we have frequencies, we have descriptives, we have explore, cross tabulation, take analysis, ratio, PP plots, QQ plots, and the rest. We'll see some here, we see descriptive, we see explore, we see cross tabulation, and right, you have it there. How do you do that? Very easy. ABC, even class 1 check and do it. You just go there, put percentages, and so you take frequencies, and you can just run everything. Let me say I just run everything. You just transfer it, right? Keep display frequencies take. If you go to statistics, you see the different, as we saw, we have frequency, measures of central tendency, mean, median, mode, skewness, courtesy, all of this. We saw them when we were doing basic concepts. If you take OK now, we now have an output view. This is our output view. This is the output view, right? Now, you can use the output view now to check whether there are missing values in your data. For instance, if you look at this, you discover that for IT, we have 3 gender. Everybody provided whether it was a he or a she. But there's somebody who did not provide his or age. So one person, one missing value, right? We are trying to get details of the information. Okay, another person here under service advice. So we have identified that there's some missing values. That's part of data cleaning. So we need to verify why do we have missing value and who did not give his or her age. We go back to our data. I can go back to our data now. And I go under age. I go under age. We want to say, okay, this person, respondent 85, did not provide his or her age. How do I know this is the respondent and doesn't? It was a she, but we don't have his or her age. How do you solve this problem? There are multiple ways. Maybe you need to go back, take your initial copy, go and take respondent 85. Open. Oh, the person provided, but in the course of inputting, we forgot. So you now come and fill in whether it was 50 years. So you come and put your 50. You solve the problem. All right? But then, if you went there and the person did not provide, how can we solve the problem? Call the person. How do you contact the person when the person does not give our number? Look for. Okay. What's your name? That's good. We use the mode. Why? Why are we using the mode? Okay, but it's a good answer. I have a little worry. So what would be our mode for this variable age if we decide to use? Okay, let's go through together and find the mode. Can we see the mode? Where's the mode? The mode is not talking. Mode, where are you? Okay, it's far away. So it's difficult for a continuous variable. Her suggestion is right, but it came in. Those are kind of things that should come up when you are doing learning. Now we can use the mode for a categorical variable. Normally we use the mode for a categorical variable. It depends also, in not all cases that we use the mode. Why is there a missing value? Maybe it did not apply to this person, so you'll not be using the mode to replace, right? Yes, the person was not supposed to answer. So it's missing by design. You get that? So you are not, if the person is not applicable to the person, you're not come and put mode there. Right? Yes, so which means missing for that person is not a problem. That's one thing that you need to know. But if it's missing by default or missing because the person did not provide and we expected the person to provide, we can, using the mode is one thing. At times, we may use, now this is more or less an intuitive way. They call it a kind of a nearest neighbor analysis, right? Yes. Hello. I check here, for instance, it was a strongly agreed question, like this one. And I check whether the responses that the person had before, were they tilted towards agree. For instance, we have 5 here, maybe 6. And there was a missing value here, right? So I may check. Hello. If you want, yes. Are you talking to us, sir? Or am I making by your calls? So at times we may need to replace it with the nearest response view. But that needs a kind of advanced knowledge to see whether best on should you replace with the value closer to, right? But the most appropriate way is to use the mode for a categorical variable and the mean for a continuous variable. Especially the data is normally distributed. If it's not normally distributed, it means we might need to use the median. You get that? But now this paragraph for you don't know about the median and so on and so forth, right? So which means you need to go and calculate that before you can. It's still part of the data analysis. If we're doing a kind of coding, it's easier. You just write your code and they will calculate the mean and come and replace and ask you something. But the manual method, you need to do that manually. But then another thing is that we're doing this just because one person. What if there are so many? What if 20% or 30, 40% did not provide and they were expected? Pardon? What will you do? Yes. Are you answering my question or you're asking your own? Answer my question before you ask your own. We said just one respondent, we can use the mean or the mode. But what if there were so many persons that did not answer that question? Maybe up to 40%. How do we treat that? Yes, how do we treat that serious situation? Okay, we'll cancel. Because normally sometimes those qualifications are best where maybe when we get into when we get after the questions, it will be help us to be able to understand what to do. So sometimes also now most of there's a space for normal. It depends on the content. That's one way. So you support the idea that he says we should call them back. Okay. Pardon. We're trying to get a solution. We're asking possible ways of managing like this. Yes. Yeah. Okay. They also have why the number of persons did not answer a particular question. Maybe it was sensitive or something, they cannot say. Are we getting the different ways of treating? Right? You can call back. You can ignore and move ahead if you think that it's not a serious situation. You may want to go back to the field, recollect the entire data set. But that can only be done if it is a critical situation that will affect our overall results. Alternatively, we can drop that particular question completely, right? Or we limit ourselves to those who have provided the information. You don't want if you discover that using the mode might skew the results, because by using that, the mode or the mean should not take the results far away from reality. But if you think that you will do that, you will change the results far away from reality, then preferably you drop that. Now, there's a way SPSS does it. They have what we call the lead-wise approach and the paired-wise relation, which means when they're doing the analysis, most often they only limit to those that provided complete information. So if your information is incomplete to that particular variable, they don't consider you as part of, they don't consider. So they only deal with those that provided complete information to the variable, complete information to the variable. That's one of the most common ways of treating them. Yes. But that's what we're doing data cleaning. What we're doing here is part of that data cleaning. We're still observing it. We have not started analysis. No, we have not started analysis. We're still observing our data. The only thing we saw that was missing values, the person that came up. Right? We're not into analysis here. Yeah, so we're still trying to understand our data. fail to answer. You don't answer, then this one you can't move to the next question. Well, everything you do has an advantage and a disadvantage. Now you're comparing somebody to you must answer. The person not willing. High probability the person will give a wrong answer. It's equally yes. Yes. The high probability will also give a wrong answer. Now I'm not really whether I'm male or female, you say I must say it before I continue. Can you choose to give you a different? Do you get that? Yes. So, theoretically, that is what ought to be, but in practice, that is not what is. Right? Now, some questions by default, you ask my age, I'm looking at you. Right? I may not want to tell you my real age, although I'm willing to provide information for you, information with respect to. You get, yes. Yes. Or are you married? And maybe I'm looking at you, I have interest. And some practical real world situations that you face in the field. You get that? Yes. So somebody is like, if I answer this question, okay, are you HIV positive? It's sensitive. It's a sensitive question. But the person accepted that this and that. If the person was alone, maybe they say, well, the person can feel without you and nobody will see, the person will feel. But looking at you, and like, So, don't bother. The name is not enough. Even if you say I should not give my name, I should not give anything. Just the fact that I'm the one feeling, there is a different feeling you have concerning. It's just like somebody is looking at. There's everything about you that they will see. So that is it's a reality that we'll face in the future. So theoretically, somebody else says I'll participate in the study, should be ready to. If you go to meet, you invite somebody to come for. There are moments that you go heated with your person. Even disagree, some people disagree and even leave the stage with that conflict. So it's possible in application, those challenges will come, right? Yes. But as a data analyst, you always want to use the best data for your analysis. People should be honest. And there's one overall assumption when it comes to data analysis, that the person responding is honest. If you don't assume that there is honesty, yes. So we hope everything constant, the person is truthful. And that's why it's always good to. Now, in some cases, it's good to tell the person, especially if you're like looking at item question, there's no right or wrong answer. I don't think that taking strongly agree, you are worse off than somebody who, strongly disagree, you are worse off than somebody who strongly agree. No, it's your experience, your perception, it's your feeling. It has nothing to do with our overall. Yes. So there's no right or wrong answer. At least just putting that statement on your questionnaire makes the person think that no, and give the honest answer, because it is neither right or wrong. It's just how I perceive it to be. But when the person thinks that maybe you prefer strongly agree. Now, just the person will prefer to give you strongly agree just to please you. You get it? Yes. Just now that's the first thing. The second thing, doing analysis. This now, since I don't want us to go to start analysis, if the brains are a bit tired, just everything. Time is fast spent. The second thing is that we have what we say respondents non-involvement. A kind of, for instance, let's take the case of a strongly agreed questionnaire. Let me just see what we have here. You've asked respondents questions and their answers are really off track. Excuse me, let me locate it. Okay, let's say this is our questionnaire. This is our questionnaire. Let me just highlight this, remove number of decimal places so that my data should be. I come here. Those who are Excel experts are looking. Right? So Let's create. Yeah. So I come here, I have my data. I said it's good that you freeze the top column, top rows, sorry, so that if I'm going down, you'll still be seeing. I don't know how that freeze. How many freeze do we have here? The thing has been behaving foolish. Yeah. So, okay. So we see that I've not experienced that. So you see, Excel here identifies that this is an error. Right? SPSS, there was a dot. So a dot in SPSS shows the missing value. In Excel, we may find no, meaning that's not. So one of the ways we track respondents' misbehavior, that's another way, is that we may choose to, let's assume that these are all strongly agreed questions. There's a possibility that a respondent will just pick 555 to the end, or a particular one. It's like the person was not reading, right? Such a respondent also needs to be discarded. They're not a serious, we don't consider it to be very serious. So let's see, wait, let me just quickly delete this. So we delete it. And to do that, we may use what we call, based on your constructs, we may use standard deviation. We start application of standard deviation. So say equal to standard deviation in Excel is standard deviation of sample. So we highlight. From here, we want to let me just say I'm not going right to the end. I just start from. We just start from here. So and we close. So they'll calculate the standard deviation. You can take the standard deviation and apply it all through right to the end. When it comes to application, anything you do, there are multiple ways of doing the same thing. So let's reduce the decimal places and reduce. Well, it's this data that I've already worked on, so some of those issues might not be there. So the rule of the thumb says that if you see maybe a standard deviation too low, maybe 0, or maybe 0. Up to 0.4, there is a tendency that the person was not really involved. You're just choosing one thing over and over, which we expect that there should be variation in opinion. You may delete. Well, literature is not explicit, but those are some ways that you're trying to identify people that might not have read the questionnaire, but since you provided responses, they were just ticking and going. Some people only tick and just decided, okay, let me just change now. You go and check, you discover 55555, then put 1, go back 5555. I think you have to just manually evaluate some of them to do good analysis. I'm assuming that we're doing practical analysis, which you need to be conscious of the quality of our results. So if you do this and you check here, we see here everybody seems to be good. There is nobody. There was anybody with less than 0.05 may be considered for deleting, or far less than 0.5. It seems everybody was somehow some kind of. But like I said, this is not something that must always be the same, right? And this might be peculiar for this linked item type of questions where you assume that there should be similarities among questions. So, but it's not like any work you take now, you start putting everything to do. Do we get that? So, with that, I think you identify and discover that this respondent needs to be deleted. You right click and remove these persons from your data before you move on. still part of the data cleaning process. So that having said, I see that my time is fast spent and we cannot start the analysis today, but we can start next week. We'll come to start practicals proper with analysis. From here is analysis. We are seeing key things with respect to data input thing. There are some things that will only bring them in as we progress, because bringing them now may confuse what we have already gathered. That said, any question, any worry, any. I've not tried that. It might be possible, but I've not. But I don't think that the two link. If it was Excel, it's easier, but I don't know that particular. I've not checked, but it may be possible. Spss, talking about Spss. It's not going. It doesn't go. I'm just from trying. It doesn't go. It's not like Excel. Excel can easily do that. Yes. And now in Excel, maybe something wrong here. If it's linked to another page, it goes automatic and you can change. So yes, you can sort in XPSL. You can also sort. We'll see sorting. We'll see even classification. We want to select some particular cases. It's there. It's step by step. Step by step. For instance, if I just want to take all of those who answered 5, who are above 30 for gender, or maybe 50 years for gender, I just come, this is my gender. I take condition, I put the gender variable here. I say greater than 50. If I take continue, here they give you room. Maybe you want to extract it to a different cell, or you just want to strike out that, click, and you discover that they have strike out everybody here. Indicate that this, if you check here, all there is, you go to the age, there's nobody here, it's above 50. So when you see anybody that's above 50, yes, the person will not have that sign. Seemingly, everybody is less than 50. Everybody is less than 50. So let's go and use but different. This one, yes. Let's still assume that's less than. Let's take bench. So 30 now. You can now decide to do sorting. I come and put there, and I take sort this. I say sort. You want to sort ascending or descending? Let's say ascending. Descending from the highest. So since we want to get those now let's take. Why do we have 1 to this variable? It should be a mistake. There's nobody that should be 1 year of age now. And it's responding to our questionnaire. Those are issues. For instance, this is something that when you don't, it's always good to even sort your data, because when you start, you can discover issues there. So it's when sorting, you discover that there are some people 1 year of age, which is not true. So there should be something wrong somewhere, right? So you can sort, you can filter, you can do so many things. Spss. That said, we end for today. See us.